Hi everyone, this is Raina. So this is a video for Mars in Capricorn. I'm doing a series of Mars in the different astrological signs. And for those who have just clicked on this video and didn't know what to expect, and you want to find where your Mars is at, please look underneath this video where I have a link to a list that will have your date, and you can find out that way. With the time of birth, you can pinpoint exactly which sign it's in if it changes on the day that you're born. But even if you do pinpoint it, you will be on the cusp of those two signs that are on your date of birth. So please listen to both of the readings because you'll probably identify at least in part with both of them. So Mars is the planet of action, and it's a planet of ambition, drive. I don't know how else to put it. Maybe focusing on a target, what motivates us. Also, how do we ask for what we want? Not everybody does it the same way, right? How do we express anger? Because Mars can be that aggression and things like that. So that's what Mars represents. Oh, and sex drive. Can't forget that, because that is, the libido is definitely a part of Mars. You know, the divine lovers, Venus and Mars. Venus is more of the romantic side of things, and Mars is the physical drive. It's also your physical stamina. So energetically, but I'm talking about like physically. How you handle your work. Do you burn out quickly? Sometimes people burn out quickly, though, because they don't take enough breaks. They're just relentless. So it's not that they don't have enough energy, but they don't know how to handle it properly. They're too extreme. Okay, well, what does Capricorn represent? Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. It rules the 10th house of career. And Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, which is all about discipline, organization, and being realistic, not pie in the sky. So when somebody has a personal planet like Mars, or like when I say personal planet, I say personal point, because the moon, we don't always call these things planets or the sun, but any heavenly body or the rising sign even can give off this professional vibe from the person, as well as this, definite ambitious nature. And so with Mars in Capricorn, it definitely is featured that the person may have a absolute desire to be a success in life. Now, I feel kind of like torn about this particular video because I have Mars in Capricorn. And when I read about all the attributes of it, I really cannot identify personally with many of them. In some ways I can, but in some ways I can't. I've never been like that type of incredibly ambitious person. So it's a little bit hard for me to imagine that this is going to be the case. But things can be modified by other factors in your chart. So whenever I talk about these pure traits, chances are they're not going to be pure for too many people. Most people are going to have them modified by their sun sign, for instance. So in my case, my sun is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarians are a lot more open-ended about life. They're philosophical. So achieving worldly ambitions can only go so far when you're focused on the spiritual, right? Sagittarius is more of a spiritual teacher than a straight up business person. But there can be Sun and Sagittarians who really embody Mars in Capricorn. Maybe they have a moon in Leo, and they are very much into success, really making the most of themselves. Or maybe they have the moon in Capricorn as well. But the point is that the theme of Capricorn is to better oneself. So usually the person with a prominent Capricorn is starting on a lower level and rising up. So they talk about climbing the ladder of success. That's definitely what Capricorns are all about. And because Capricorn is an earth sign, the proof, if you will, of success has to be tangible. So in other words, there have to be diplomas, there have to be maybe some kind of awards, so that the Capricorn person can feel like they have really made it. Usually, a Mars and Capricorn person will get, I'm saying this, it's not that I necessarily read this anywhere, but I have a feeling that most people with Mars and Capricorn will tend to desire a college degree rather than drop out and be a self-made person, because they really are traditional at heart. And so their value, or I shouldn't say their values, but their aim is going to be validation through the traditional route. Someone who might have, let's say, Mars in Aquarius might actually rebel against that college degree and may drop out of college and say, forget that, I can learn on my own. They don't know as much as I do, those professors. And anyway, that's just for the conformists to believe that they're validated by a college degree. No, Capricorn is a traditional sign, and the 10th house is at the top of the chart that Capricorn and its ruler Saturn inhabit. And this is the area where we are seen by others. And so whatever kind of achievements we can kind of show off, others can look and they can admire, and we can feel like we have done something that is worth celebrating. One thing about Mars and Capricorn is when they have a goal, their goal is not, as I use the phrase, pie in the sky. A Mars and Capricorn person is ambitious, loves to have goals, but those goals have to be achievable. And the debate on whether something is achievable can lead to a Mars and Capricorn person, perhaps, if they're not careful, turning their back on a potential goal just because it seems like it is hard to achieve, or that it is maybe a little bit unrealistic. Whereas somebody else, maybe a Mars and Aries person, takes a chance on something that seems ridiculous even, and they end up achieving that goal. So being conservative is fine, because conservative means that you can keep something like in reserve, like conserve your energy, so you're not just flailing around. But if you're too conservative, you can become too narrow and you can not try. So the Mars and Capricorn person has to make sure that their goals are lofty enough that they reflect their own positive self-image, that they really believe they can do something. And Mars is actually exalted in Capricorn, which means that it is expressed in its highest essence in that sign. Because Mars, being the way that we act, requires action that is thoughtful and methodical. Some Mars positions can be a little bit scattered. For instance, Mars in Gemini is an example of that, where the person may have so many interests that they have unfocused expenditure of energy, and they don't direct their energy into one place, funnel it. And with Mars in Capricorn, we're talking about a very strategic person who is willing to take the steps that it requires to accomplish their goal. The methodical approach. And when you think about what the sign of Capricorn is represented by, which is the mountain goat climbs the mountain. You know, what do they call those shelves? And they're climbing from shelf to shelf. The mountain goat isn't trying to fly up to the top. They're willing to climb each step of the way. And Mars in Capricorn can be patient. They can bide their time, but they have their eyes on the prize. Mars in Taurus, it's almost like they can be patient to the point of passivity, where they're waiting for the opportune time or for somebody else to make a move. But because Capricorn is a cardinal sign, Mars in Capricorn is about taking action. It's just that they're cautious, and they also believe, Mars in Capricorn, that you do things in steps. You don't just try to get to the top from the bottom. And this is what makes Mars in Capricorn such a great position. Now, in terms of other areas that this can kind of affect the person's personality, a person with Mars in Capricorn, if let's say they have the Sun in Capricorn or the Sun in Scorpio, they may be very consumed with their career. Again, if somebody has their Sun, let's say, in Pisces or in Sagittarius, which are both mutable signs, they may have other things in their life that compete for their time and that interest them. And they're not necessarily driven by ambition the way that a Sun in Capricorn or Sun in Scorpio might be. Let's talk about how Mars in Capricorn expresses anger. It will be, in general, very controlled. It will not be like somebody who loses it. Again, just like any other situation, you have to also factor in who the person's getting mad at, because I think all of us tend to be a lot more restrained when we don't know someone, or we're just when we're not invested in the relationship, like it's a casual relationship. But even in personal relationships, Mars and Capricorn people tend to keep their cool. And this is because they do like control. And losing your temper is a sign of being out of control. And I have found, even with my own expression of anger, that a lot of times my voice gets lower and I'm more calm. And I think sometimes that is the most effective thing. When people scream and they're just like, over-emoting, it can just come across like somebody having a hissy fit, and they're not taken seriously. And I think in a very strange way, and I've actually read this, that when you're dealing with children, that if you're not yelling and stuff like that, but you're actually like being very calm but very serious, that can be much more effective than screaming. And so that is a very interesting way that Mars and Capricorn people tend to express anger. Now, as for sensuality, remember that Capricorn is an earth sign. So there tends to be that kind of natural interest or just affinity with the body that an earth sign would have. When you're talking about Mars and Capricorn, sometimes these people are attracted to people who are older than them. This can also be true for people who have Venus in Capricorn, where they are more attracted to those who with maturity, because that represents authority to Capricorn. And that is something that they value. This is one of the reasons why they're considered conservative, because they tend to think that there's a pecking order. You know, Capricorn is all about, you could say, the caste system. Or in terms of age, seniority is important to them. Hey, this person's been here longer, so therefore they get the most respect, or they get the highest pay, the highest position automatically, just because they've been there the longest. And so respect for those who are their elders is very big, because Saturn, the ruler, is about old age. And so anything that kind of is that theme is going to be attractive to Mars and Capricorn. But again, earth signs are not in need of enhancement. They are natural. So sex for sex sake is how they look at things. They don't have to, get into any kind of like elaborate fantasy, just the sensual aspect is good enough for them. And they, it's not that they're that imaginative, inventive, or in need of variety. They just enjoy it for its own sake. And so anyway, on that note, I think I will leave it there. If you would like a personal reading, and I have natal chart interpretations where I can do similar things that I'm doing here, along with looking at future astrological trends for you, I will provide a link below for that reading. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.